I will be upset at you.
Woohoo! Charging.
So, released the supplemental patch for the dirty cat vulnerability. So recently Google just sent out a patch and basically said if you want to download this for any of our systems, you can. On each system, it's kind of different how they patched it and how much they did patch. So on certain systems they patched with like, I think it was like 9 exploits was the most, and on other systems the minimum was 5 patches they sent through. So it's not a full fix-all, but it's the start of it, and it protects you mostly if you download it, but it is supplementary, so like you kind of get to choose if you want it or not.
Fix this problem real quick.
So DDoS attacks. They're becoming more common and more widespread because everything's connected now for us. So you can use everything in your house, from your fridge to your light bulbs, as a botnet or just as back entry to get to the rest of your system. So that's actually how they got into Target during that whole hack where they got everyone's information on the cards, is they actually went through and found little holes in different appliances that they did not have secured, or they were using default passwords. And they went through all that until they found an exploit in the connection, and that's how they got to the card readers. This is becoming more and more of a problem with today because, one, because a lot of things that we have, like light bulbs, they aren't meant to be upgraded. So like they're not meant to be changed. They work well. So there's no way to go through and fix that for the masses because no one's going to go through and do that. So they're saying that we should just monitor better on what's going on in the communications between all of our systems to make sure that nothing sketchy is going on there.
Yeah, and she brings up a good point, like if you work in Active Directory and stuff, you can push out updates to your clients and stuff like that. So you can say, hey, we've got this update, we can push it out to all our clients, and in the morning it'll all be installed, and once they reboot, everything's good, it's security vulnerability. But now if you got smart light bulbs and you got 20,000 of them in your building, what software do we currently have that's going to upgrade all those light bulbs? So that's something to think about, and that's like a problem we have now. Someone's got to go to each light bulb that there's a vulnerability. So something to think about.
So this goes back to what we talked about last week, where Google basically called Microsoft out and said, hey, you have this exploit, we told you about it, and you didn't fix it. It turns out that they also told Adobe, and the reason they got fairly upset is because Adobe fixed it very quickly, and Microsoft did not. Microsoft has recently sent out a patch as of Tuesday, because they're doing like their update Tuesdays. They never really explicitly say what it was that was patched. They just said that there was an exploit and it had to do with a very specific software, but they never explicitly said what it was. So, but they went out, they patched that, and everything's all good now. So WikiLeaks and Twitter were actually both DDoSed on the same day, the day before the election. So WikiLeaks, they've been spewing out all of the emails from the DNC, and the day before the election, they got hold of like 8,000 more. They released all those, and right after they did that, they were DDoSed. 5 minutes after that, Twitter was then DDoSed as well. So they were both attacked at the same time. There's a big thing on whether or not they're connected. There's no proof that they were, but there's lots of information that they were connected. So it's just something to look out for. And then there's that's what we can now hack our own devices. So in the past, because of the DMCA, you have not actually owned any of your devices that you own. You don't own the hardware technically, you don't own the software, you don't own any of the rights to it, you just own the physical device. So if you were to go through and hack your own computer, hack your car, you were technically breaking a copyright infringement and the company could sue you. Now they're on a 2-year probationary period where they're saying, hey, if you own the device and you have permission from yourself, you can, within good reason, hack yourself and see if there's any exploits that might come up. It is a 2-year probationary period. So after 2 years, if we can prove that giving us this permission is good for the security world, they will revoke it and they will put DMCA that into effect, and we will no longer be allowed to pack our devices.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. So the University of Buffalo competition is next week on Saturday. There's a couple blue teams going. If you're interested in red teaming, contact Kyle Greta. So as per usual, Greg is having a come-off opportunity, so Jamie will be here the week after Thanksgiving to do interviews. So if you're interested in working for him, I highly suggest that you do because they're a great company. Contact Jamie on Slack or there at the RC3 CTF, woo! Is next weekend. Super excited. Woo! Got RC3 CTF RC3.Club up. If you create a team and you create a user, your email will go to spam. I can't do anything about it. I contacted RIT and they went, "That's your problem." And I went, "It's really more yours because you're the spam filter." But all right, so that's where we stand with the spam. So just check your spam folders. Some people got lucky and went straight to their inbox. So it's the weekend of November 18th. It's going to start at 9 p.m. Go the entire weekend until 11:59 on Sunday. So the categories you ask are going to be, all right, web forensics, coding, reversing, crypto, trivia, and this. So sponsors have donated challenges, so be aware of that. If you guys would like to submit your resumes, have team captains collect your guys' resumes and then send them to Kristen at that email address, and we'll take your resumes and we'll submit it to our sponsors so that you guys get jobs. So first place prizes will be the Raspberry Pis, and then the Sam's Netboards class. Second place will be land turtles, and third place will be lockpicking set. So traditionally we've kind of set tiers of which teams can choose, which teams get which prizes, but now we're just going to go, if you're first place, you get first choice at any of these prizes. So, and then the top 3 teams will get CTF shirts as well as Grid Landings. So, SmoothCon tickets. So there's a sponsorship ticket form that you should sign up if you need a ticket or if you have an extra ticket. So it's going to be Friday, January 13th through Sunday, January 15th. Awesome it's an awesome conference down in Washington D.C. It's pretty much just like RIT alumni everywhere, and then some other people. So. You can also do Schmooze a Student, where it's really awesome. You have to get a professor, right, Jesse? Yep. Yeah, professor, faculty to kind of go along. You write like a page report about what you kind of do in security and why Schmooze would benefit you. And if you apply for it and they accept you, you'll get 1, a ticket, and 2, you'll get money that you can use to get there, so they can help you with your airfare, or food, and everything like that. So really awesome. And December 1st, the second round tickets, and December 10th is the third round tickets.
I think the deadline for Schmooze a Student is next Friday, if I remember correctly.
Thank you. And then RC3 outline, we kind of changed it a little bit. So this week is totally forensics. Next week we're going to be doing reversing right before the RC3 CTF. And then we're going to be at Thanksgiving, so no one will be here, not even me. And then the week after, we're going to think of doing Android or an alumni presentation to be announced. And then Friday, December 9th is the Friday right before finals, so a lot of people are more interested in studying finals. So we're going to kind of do like a King of the Hill type of day / hangout. So just come out, hang out with us in the Sec Lab. Nothing big, anything like that. So, all right, on to the main event. So forensics. We're going to have a fun time talking about forensics. This is one of my biggest joys in security. So as per usual, our disclaimer, don't do anything dumb. So what is forensics? So there's a whole bunch of different definitions out there, but pretty much the gist is forensics is the practice of collecting, analyzing, and reporting on digital data that you find, that hopefully you will be using in a court of law or to your lawyers for your company if an employee has done something wrong. So keep that in mind that a lot of times when you do forensic investigations, they're going to be used for legal purposes. So, forensics 0. Let's start all the way at the beginning. So before we even get into like forensics 101s, the tools and everything like that, we're going to be reviewing dead box forensics today. Next semester, we're going to be covering incident response. We're going to be going through a 2-week rotation of incident response. This week it's purely dead box forensics. So before we start talking about tools and all that, you want to start with the understanding of how a forensic response plan actually works, how you go through one, what is one, what are the steps and all like that. Because if you understand the process and the plan to kind of go through and how to do forensics, it's much easier to do it and a lot easier. And a lot of companies, it's great that you know every forensics tool. But if you can't explain to them the process of stepping through a forensic investigation, they're going to throw you right out the window. That's the end of the conversation, I guarantee it. So understanding the forensic process is much more important. And we're going to go over a generic one. Every company has their own. They specialize in whatever works best for their security plan and their company. But most of them have the general same kind of concept and same kind of goal. So keep in mind with forensics, be an investigator, not a storyteller. So think of yourself as Sherlock Holmes. Your job is to stick to the facts. Don't create them, don't assume them, and don't draw conclusions. You have data. Present the data. Present the data as facts. It's all right there in front of you. The information's in front of you. The data's telling you what you need to know. So present the data. So some basic terms just to start off with. So we have an event. What is an observable occurrence in information system that actually happened at some point in time. And then we have an incident, which is any security or policy event that affects our normal operation of our computing systems. And then a record is a form of information, regardless of the medium or format, that has value to an organization. And then evidence can be anything as far as a testimony, documents, tangible data, data that you find, data that you recovered that tends to prove, disprove the existence of alleged facts. So, generic forensic plan. So, step number one, and everyone always skips this in the beginning, is preparation. Start off with, if you want to do forensics, you need to have systems in place. You need to have policies in place. You need to know what kind of tools that you're going to use if you're going to do a forensic investigation. So what type of tools are we all going to use so that when we as a team do a forensic investigation, we're all using the same tools and we're all using the same format and stuff like that. So it makes it easier. Have logging in place, have system monitoring in place. It helps us detect things easier. So we can be one step ahead, hopefully, if something does happen. Identification. At this point in the process, you decide if an event is considered an incident. And at this phase, no modifications should be made. And then at this phase as well, you should be reusing logs and firewall logs, antivirus stuff, and your SIP. So, seizure and containment. Lock down devices, take them off the network, disconnect them, lock them down, make sure that there's no way that that user or any outside connection can reach it. So, why this is important, ICOM has the ability to send commands remotely to wipe a MacBook or an iPhone. So, that's kind of scary that someone can log in on a totally different device if that device is sitting right there in your office and you're watching it and they're like halfway around the world and they just send a command and it just wipes everything. What are you going to do? So lock it down. Make sure that there's no inside or outside connections from that box. Put cell phones in Faraday cages / bags. These are like special design bags that won't let cell tower connection in or out. And collect all relevant data pertaining to the incident. This is not restarting the process again. Google just wouldn't let me start it forward here. So not starting at 1, we're starting at 4. But you guys get it. So acquisition, collecting relevant data for the investigation. Analysts, taking all the data collected to identify evidence, looking for signs of sensitive data for evidence. And then reporting / lessons learned. So the last step in the phase. What did we find? What do we know? What did we do wrong? How do we go about making improvements to prevent this in the future? Can we improve our forensic process so that we can do it better in the future? So that's the forensic plan in a 10,000-foot view. Any questions so far? All right, cool. So forensic category breakdown. So there's 3 forms of that we're going to cover today. The first one is disk, the second one is network, and the third one is memory forensics. So in disk forensics, we have non-volatile data, which means that it's persistent across reboot. So when you shut down your system, you don't lose all your data on your hard drive. It's still there when you boot it back up. Data on the storage mediums can be like things like hard drives, flash drives, SD cards, really anything that you can store stuff on. Storage mediums provide a timeline of events that happen on the local machine. And then we move to network forensics, where we usually have things like PCAPs, which are the majority of what we do for network forensics for analyzing PCAPs. So network captures provide a timeline of events with other machines. And then we move to memory forensics, which is volatile data. So if you shut down your box, you're going to lose everything in memory. It's just going to go away. It's going to be gone. So that's really important to understand that there's a lot of cool stuff in memory. And if you shut down the box, you're going to lose all of it. So understand the difference between non-volatile and volatile information. Memory dumps provide a snapshot of events that are happening currently when we're taking the memory dump. So right there in that instance, we're getting everything in memory. So it's happening right there in the moment. So Linux, we have two commands, the string command and the file command. They're my two favorite commands. I use them all the time. I suggest you guys do the same. So the file command determines the file type. So you may actually get a file that has a .jpeg extension, but it's actually a .exe. It's actually an executable. Funny. You can do funny stuff with that. And you can trick a lot of people up if you just put extensions, because people rely on that extension way too much. So an example of this. So the magic number for an MP3 is IE3. So here I have my Taylor Swift song, Shake It Off, my favorite song currently. I'm going to run the file command of the Taylor Swift song. Tell me that it's an MP3 right here, and then there's a bunch of crap about the MP3 itself. So how do I confirm that? How do I prove that to you guys that it's actually an MP3? So if we do a hex dump and we take the first 50 bytes of the file, we can see right here the first 3 is ID3. So that is what the file command is doing. It's going over to the beginning of the file and reading the magic number. So that's what's happening. So, okay. The strings command prints all strings of printable characters within a file. So, interesting thing with the strings command is that if you run it on binaries and things like that in other files, it may contain domain names, usernames, IP addresses, etc. Almost anything, everything that is printable in a file will be outputted to the screen. However, you can usually get like a lot of random stuff that's not really useful, so you usually have to go through and look for it and grab it. And if you use the strings-el, we'll show you Unicode strings. So this is really fun when people actually hide strings in Unicode, because no one really looks there a whole lot, so that's why I included that. So that's kind of interesting. Now we'll actually do that. We'll actually hide important strings in Unicode, because people just check the ASCII. So, and as you can see down here, here's a print of strings for Taylor Swift. Shake It Off. So, DG and backup. Always make a copy of every piece of forensic data that you get. Always. Always make a copy. Never ever work from the original file. Always work from a copy of it. DB does a bit-for-bit copy of the input to output. So it just takes exactly what you gave it, and it gives you a copy of the file out, and they're exactly the same. DD is typically the choice of forensic investigators. It's a command-line tool. It's really simple and easy once you learn how it works. Pretty simple, and use it all the time. So here we have a common example. So DD, IF stands for the input file that we're giving it. OF is the output, and then BS is the block size. So here, and then there's some commands that you can have. So count how many blocks we actually want to copy. So if we don't want to copy the entire file, we only want to copy so many of it, we can use count and say, I want to count those many blocks of the file. And then we can say skip. How many blocks do I want to skip before I start reading from the input file? So I can skip part. And see how many blocks do we want to skip before writing to the output file. So if we have a file already and we want to start appending data, we can say, hey, skip all the way to the end of the file and then start writing. So that's what skip. That's what seek allows you to start. And here's some examples. So currently right here, I have DB. I'm taking the input of my current hard drive and I'm outputting it to output.dat. And I'm using the block size of 512, and I'm only counting a gigs worth of data. So you can see here with DG that we had successfully write in the count. Right here, we had we had the same number of in as we do out. This is really important to understand with DG and how it works in down here. So if there is an error, what will happen is on the records out, it'll stop at the block that it's currently at where there's an error, and it'll raise this by 1. So it's not going to tell you what the error is, it's going to tell you that there's an error, so if there's bad data or whatever, you kind of need to go do some more forensic investigation, but that's good to know how DB works. So yeah, you can see it down here, we have an error where we have a +1. And it's not here at this block, so now we know that this is our problem block right here. So hashing. Hashing is your best friend in forensics. So hashing hashing a file allows us to ensure integrity of a file. So, create a bit-for-bit copy of the disk. We just explained how to do that. Create a copy of the disk image. Do analysis on the copy. After you've done your analysis, take a hash of your copy and prove that the original file still equals the same hash as your copy, so that you know when you did your analysis, you made no changes to the actual system. Because if you did, then a lawyer is just going to be like, you changed something, and I don't care what it was, but you changed something, and we can't tell what it was. So, let me take one step back and move forward a little bit. So, we all know that if we echo password 1 into MD5, and it's not going to equal the echo of password into MD5. We can see that the hashes are totally different, even though the only thing that we did was take away the 1. These are totally different hashes, and there's no way to tell how much change was made to the input, but we can see here. But if we make changes to the disk, we have no idea what's changed. All we know is that the hashes are different, and we can't tell how much change was made. So that's why important with this is to make sure that integrity stays in check with this, that we say, hey, the hashes have not changed, and I have not compromised any of the data in my forensic investigation. So it only takes a minor change to affect the entire hash, as we just discussed. So this is why SSD was created, so that we could detect similarity. So that's why SSD was created. So we have this issue where if we have just a slight change, we're going to have totally different hashes. So what if I want to see the similarity of two files? So this is where SSD really comes in and is very useful. So it uses piecewise hashing. So what is piecewise hashing? We have this file. What we're going to do is chop up the file into chunks. And then we're going to hash each chunk. And then we're going to have another file that we want to compare similarity to. We're going to chop that file up into chunks, hash each individual section, and then we're going to compare each one. What's up?
How would you determine where the boundaries of the chunk should be so that they align? Otherwise, there could be an offset.
Well, if there's an offset, then the data is obviously different, right?
Well, no, I'm saying if you have just like extra 3 bytes at the beginning, it'll offset the entire thing.
You're right. I'm going to show you that in a couple minutes, just a little bit ahead of me. So we want to take a hash of each chunk and then compare each chunk to each other. So as we can see here, I've taken the input file of Taylor Swift, shake it off, and I outputted shake off those bits, and I just put off the, what was it? So I cut off the last 33 bytes. So as you can see, I took off the last 33. So as we can see here, we ran through SSD, and you can see here's the hash. Where is it? So here's our hashes. We can see that they're all the way the same, until here at the end where the actual change was made. So I took the last 33 off. So you can see here at the end that they're different. But all through here, they're all the hash is the same. Make sense? So if the beginning was changed, the hash would be different in the beginning. Make sense?
Well, if you change the beginning, not if you attend the data to the beginning necessarily.
Yeah, so it's going to show that they're different, but if they line up, it's going to show where each chunk is similar. So if you have similar chunks, it's going to show that. So an example. So let's say we have malware, right? And we take a hash of a malware, right? I take a hash of a certain particular piece of malware. What can I do to get past AV that's just checking for that particular hash? There you are.
Just like change the malware, like modify.
Yeah. So how would I do that? Tell me how you change the malware. If you had the source code, how would you modify it? All you have to do is change a variable name, right?
Right.
All you got to do is just change a variable name. You just got to change it very slightly to have a totally different hash. So that's what this is doing, is we have two files that we think are somewhere, and we see how actually similar they are.
Yeah, so I'd like to answer your question about the offset. The DD has a functionality called seek, where you can, that's essentially what it's doing. You're telling where, how many bytes in you want to start from. So if you knew that there was an offset, you could use seek to break that.
Yeah. So moving forward, but how much alike? We actually want an actual percentage. So we can take our Taylor Swift, shake it off, and we can actually make a signature of it. So we created this signature file called sig.txt. You can actually do this for malware, but I'm just using the MP3 as an example. And then we have our shake it off bits, and we're going to compare the SSD with this signature signature file that we just created, and we can see that they're 99% the same because they only chopped off 33 bytes. So that's SSD. So binlog is a fast, easy tool for looking inside a file and tell you what's inside a file. So if you just get a data file and you have no idea what's in it, you can run binlog and it'll run through and it'll read all the magic numbers in that data file and return to you what's in there. So we can see here at the beginning, it's reading the first entry as a Microsoft executable. The second entry in there is an XML document. So pretty cool tool, really useful. It even does the same thing with zip files. So if you have a zip file that's password protected, that's okay, but we can still kind of see what type of files are in that zip file. So what type of files are in the zip file, even if it is password protected. So really cool. So file table, a database that correlates files to their location on disk. So every partition has their own lookup table. So and this lookup table belongs at the beginning of the partition. So this is what gets deleted when you, so the entry in our database is what gets deleted when you delete a file. So if you don't know, when you click the delete button, you're not actually deleting the actual data on disk. The only thing you're doing is deleting the entry in your database. The file still exists on disk and it's still recoverable. How it actually gets deleted is when we have new data that's coming in and we need to write it to disk, it's going to overwrite that. So that's how data is actually deleted. Unless you use an eraser program, which you can actually say, I actually want to make sure that this file on disk is actually gone, and it'll just make it all zeros or random data. So if data is not contiguous on disk, because it's kind of hard because you're deleting, you're adding new things all the time, it's hard to just say, I want this whole chunk for my file. That's not really possible because we're adding, deleting things. So we may have a file go from A to N, and then the end of N is going to point where the beginning of the continuing part of the file is going. So does that make sense? So here, if we have our green is one file, we can see that we have our file and it's pointing down here to the next part of our file. So it's just pointing in that direction of the next part of the file. So, how to mount disk images. First, we need to know the file system of the image. The file system lets you know how to read and interpret the data from the file system. So we can use fdisk, that's LU, in the image file, and it will bring back the partitions and the file system of each partition. So how to mount that disk, we can use ls setup. We can use a loopback device and then the image, and that'll take the image and put it on the loopback device, and then we actually mount that loopback device to a file on our file system. And then we can actually access it as if we had just plugged in a flash drive. So pretty simple, pretty easy, really effective. So DFF is the data forensic framework tool, and it can be used to analyze a disk or a memory forensic image. So it's a really powerful tool. I've just spent some time getting to know it, but here's a really powerful part of the tool just to kind of understand where you can get some power out of this tool. So here we have an image and it's blank. That's because there was a file there and then I deleted it. But as we already know from the previous slide, that the data is not actually gone. So we can actually use DFF and go through and we can see that I still have super secret txt. So we can see that the data is still there and it's still recoverable. So we can still get it. So DFF allows you to go into the file system and see all that. Autopsy in the sleuthkit toolkit, it's a really awesome open source toolkit. Thing to note is that it has a bunch of different tools inside of it, so you can go get really, and they're all really specific in what they're functioning. So Wireshark. Wireshark is going to be your bay. If you want to do network forensics, it is your bay, and if you want to do forensics, get comfortable using Wireshark because it's going to be your best friend, and you're going to use it probably almost all the time. So Wireshark requires that people have a knowledge of how the network actually operates, and you guys do. You guys take a networking 101. You guys are taking networking 1. We have Wiseman come in and do networking, so you guys have a fundamental understanding of how networking works. So you guys can go through and analyze PCAP. Wireshark is a fantastic tool, and so it allows you to do filtering based on the data that you currently have. So it'll be a bunch of different packets inside of it. It'd be like, hey, I want a subset of packets based on this IP address, so you can do IP adder, ADDR, and then equals the IP address, and it'll just take all the packets that only have that IP address, whether it's source or destination. Maybe you just want destination, so you can do IP EST, where I only want everything destined with this IP address. You can filter based on protocol, so DNS, ICMP, UDP. And you can also filter based on port, and you can combine all of these to get even more granular. Wireshark even has this great ability for you to extract files from streams. Something that's really cool and interesting that when I was reading about it, you can actually extract VoIP streams from Wireshark. So if you have a capture of a VoIP conversation, you can extract that VoIP conversation and then just start playing it. Kind of cool, kind of interesting, something to kind of be interested on if you're going to be doing pen testing. So Wireshark continues. So we have file carving, it's great, it's awesome. So here we have an FTP-DA stream. So this is just a file transfer with FTP. So we can see that we have our FTP interaction going through, logging in, and then we're going to say, hey, we want to request this file. So we can see that now it's starting to download our file. So if we right-click the actual packet, go to follow, and then TCP stream, it'll bring up a box, and then we can just say, hey, I want to save this actual TCP stream to disk. So it'll take the file that's actually being downloaded and it'll save it to disk so that you guys can analyze it. So it'll pull files out of your packet captures, which is pretty cool. So another really quick tool and awesome tool is Grow. It's kind of a complicated tool for beginners. There is a steep learning curve. I even have difficulty learning it, but it's a really awesome tool when I'm learning it, and it has a really cool features. But in 5 minutes, Grow has this ability to do Grow-R, and then you give it a PCAP, and basically what it does is it creates a directory with a bunch of log files. So basically what those log files is an HTTP log file, a files log file, a DNS log file, so it'll extract all this information out of your PCAP, and it'll give you a list of every HTTP connection made within that PCAP, every DNS query that was made, or any DNS traffic in general in that PCAP, and any connections that were made. So, and it's really awesome to pull out different, and it can even show you what files are transferred. And then we have this great thing called Explico. It's a source network forensics analyst toolkit. It's really awesome. It has a nice web GUI, provides some nice statistics on packets that you are analyzing, so you can give it a PCAP, and it'll go through, do all its fancy math stuff, and then it'll kind of say, here's your statistics on different traffic. And it can also even tell you what type of files were transferred, and you can actually click this and download the actual file. So Explico is one of those tools that has a really nice web GUI, but I'm more of a command line guy. So, memory forensics, getting into the system, understanding what the system is doing in memory forensics. So I'm going to let Nick take over this part, talk about the system internals, and then we're going to talk about memory forensics because it's really crucial to understand how the system works, to understand what you're getting from the memory.
So, who here can tell me what RAM means? Yeah, percent.
Random access memory.
Random access memory. Okay, how is that different from a hard drive? Yeah, well, right there.
It's not permanent, and it can change place holding at random.
Okay, so it's volatile data, like Ben was talking about earlier. But specifically, in a hard drive, you have to seek through the drive. There's an arm on the drive that moves sequentially through the drive. And if you're accessing this node, like this inode here, and this node here, this block here, you have to go from the outside of the drive to the inside drive, and you have to find it. But with RAM, it's something that you can access randomly, right? You can say, I want sector this, it completes the circuit, goes to that sector, and gets the information. It'll do the same thing if you pick sector A, the same thing if you pick sector Q. So, memory pretty much holds everything in your computer. It's volatile data, like we talked about before. Running programs get stored in there, and that's where programs maintain their state. Yeah. So when you run a program, so let's say you compiled an executable, you have your executable that's generated. When you run it, what's actually happening is that code is being loaded into memory, because memory is a lot faster than your physical media, so that's how it can run a program efficiently. All of that gets shoved up into the memory, and then your computer will start taking those those instructions and then sending them to the processor. So memory is kind of where you store everything that you're going to need right away for a program, whereas the hard drive is where you're going to store something for long term. And then that runs for the course of the program's life, and when the program is done, all that memory is then unallocated and the rest of the system can get back to using. So what do we store in here? Pretty much everything your computer is actively doing. Your processes, like I said before, all stored in memory. Your network connections, all of that state and all of the data transfers handled in memory. When you're reading a file from the file system, what you're first doing is you're reading the actual hard disk. You're taking whatever section of data you want, putting it into a section of memory, and then operating on that. For websites, when you're running a web server, all of your SSL keys, your TLS keys are held in memory so that you can process things faster. Your cookies, your cookies are held in memory as well. The registry database, so essentially the configuration database for Windows, all those registry keys that you're very familiar with not touching. Those are all held in memory, so they have a physical portion on disk, but when the system is run, they actually get loaded up into memory so that your system can access them faster. And pretty much everything, like if you think about it, everything your computer is actively doing is stored in memory. So, volatility framework. It's a collection of tools, it's implemented in Python, and then analyzes and extracts artifacts from memory.
So, I love Cyber Apprentice because it's where all the fun really happens. So we have volatility, and it kind of has like command line format that we're kind of going to go over real quick just so you guys understand. So basically we have volatility. We're going to use the -f command to say, hey, this is our memory dump. We have a -- profile to say what the profile is, and then we're going to give it a volatility plugin name. So what is a profile? A profile is a collection of VT types and all this other stuff that you don't really need to know about, but that's the really basic term. So basically what a profile actually does is it says, hey, this is the actual operating system that it is, this is the version of the operating system that's running, and this is the architecture that's running. So based on different operating systems, different versions of the operating systems, and the different architectures of the operating systems, and even service packs of the different operating systems, we have different profiles for each because they all handle data differently in memory, and we need to tell volatility how to read that data and extract valuable information so that we can add good data. So that's a profile, and the profile contains, like again, everything I just said, like the metadata, the system call information, and things like that. And a volatility program, what a volatility plugin is, it's cut off a little bit, sorry about that. So modules, so we have these things in volatility called modules/plugins. So modules and plugins are things that we say, hey volatility, here's my memory dump, I want you to go extract this information for me. So an example, which we're going to get to, is say, hey, go grab me all the processes that we had running in the file system, running on the system when we did the dump. So some common plugins that we usually use is image info, which we're going to get to in a second, PS tree and PS list, scan, which is for like network connections and stuff like that. You can dump actual executables out of memory, which is kind of cool. So if you just have a dump, you can actually take that executable that was loaded into memory and actually extract it and then analyze it. You can dump all the DDLs, you can do a hash dump, and you can access registry or dump the actual registry. So let's go over the profile again. So collecting Windows memory dump, you want to write down the following information. So you want to write down what operating system it is. So Windows, Linux, Mac OS, etc. You want to write down the service pack because that and the kernel version if you know it if you're on Linux. And then you also want to do the architecture, 32-bit, 64-bit, or ARM. And then how much memory and stuff like this. So this is the basic stuff that you would do if you got a box and you're about to do dump the actual memory. You want to collect this actual information yourself. And I'm going to explain why it's good to actually collect this information and not rely on built-in tools that Volatility uses to detect the actual operating system. And we're going to get to that a little bit later. So you want to actually be 100% sure that you know what profile to use on your memory dump. So let's say we get a random memory dump and we have no idea what kind of box it came from. We have no idea the operating system or anything like that. So we're going to run image info on it. And volatility is going to go scan the memory and look for a certain structure called the KDBG structure. And this KDBG structure is in all Windows memory dumps, and it's going to read it, and it's going to give it its best guess on what it thinks the actual operating system is. So its best guess is that it thinks this image is Windows XP, SP2, and it's a 32-bit architecture. So that's its best guess. But it also says that it could be Windows XP, SP3, 32-bit. So I can tell you, because I know this image and I know where I got it and where it came from, that it's actually Windows XP, SP2, 32-bit. So it was right on the money. But sometimes it's not going to be. We're going to explain that a lot later. So now that we know the profile type, we're going to take volatility, we're going to give it our dump, and now we're going to do constant. So it detects current and past connections within memory. So you can see that there. So you can see that you can see all our connections current and past, which is kind of nice. So memory will hold on to connections that have already ended a little bit in memory. So that's kind of nice for analysis to note that, hey, if it's already gone through its process, then we can still kind of see what transpired from that process. And then if we run sockets, we can see like what sockets are currently listening. So we have listening services on the boxes. We can be like, okay, so we had services running on port 80, so maybe it was a web server. Or we have random ports that, if we have random services running on random ports, we want to go look at those processes. So we can use volatility to pull processes out of memory. So what processes were currently running when we did the memory dump? So here we do PS list, which is a straight list. And if you do PS tree, you can see which process was initiated by which process alone. So if it was initiated by another process, you can see that in PS tree. You can get DDLs that were loaded into memory, which is kind of cool because, as we know, DDL injection is a thing, and it's a malicious way to get onto a box and gain persistence and do mean and evil things. So we can actually pull those DDLs out of memory and analyze them. What's up?
DLL.
Yes. So in this example, I actually know the process that actually has some malicious DDLs. So I'm going to say, hey, process 868. I want to dump all the DDLs, and you can see here on the right that it was dumped to an actual directory on the file system so that we can handle it later. So then we can also tell them, hey, I want to do a hash dump, so I want to get all the hashes of all the users currently logged on the system. So if we run hash dump, we get all our nice, pretty hashes, which is freaking great and awesome. All right, so when volatility makes me sad. So, you know, it's really hard to read this, and it's really hard to do memory forensics. You know, it's a difficult thing. It's still an area that's in research. It's not something that we're still like we've got it down pat like we do file system forensics. This is something that's still in research and stuff. So as you can see that when we run the NetScan module, it actually doesn't work on this version of our memory. NetScan will work on Windows 7 and up, but it won't work on our image, which is running Windows XP. So be aware of that not all modules will run on everything. And some modules will actually be operating system dependent. All right, so flow of volatility. So like I said, we had this KDBG structure in memory, which will tell us what type of Windows operating system we're analyzing. Well, something that's interesting is that if you do an update on Windows, sometimes Windows may not delete the old KDBG structure. So that means it's going to read through memory, and the first structure it finds is going to report it to you. So if you upgrade it, it may read the wrong structure. And additionally, this KDBG structure is not actually important to the functional operation of the operating system. So what malware is actually doing is it'll go to this structure and it'll actually change the values. So that if you try to go do memory forensics, it'll report the wrong operating system, the wrong type and all that, and you're going to get bad data back. So be aware of that, that malware is going through and changing that structure, that this structure is not, the operating system is not dependent on it. So, virus total. I want to go over this one as one of the last things that I covered. So virus total, it's really awesome to upload files and see, hey, is this file malicious? However, if you're a forensic investigator, it's not good to upload files that you've hacked, okay? okay? And reason being is that you can have confidential/sensitive data in those files, and you don't want to upload it to VirusTotal because you don't know what VirusTotal is doing with that file in the back end. Is there people at VirusTotal that are taking down your files and analyzing it? Can they see your sensitive data if you upload a PDF with sensitive data? So that's not a really effective way to do it. What's a better way of doing it is taking your file, hashing it, taking that hash and giving it to VirusTotal. And if VirusTotal has seen that hash before, it'll tell you the results of it. And that's a much more effective way so that you aren't breaching confidentiality when you're working at a company as a contractor or something like that. So you don't want to upload files because of sensitive or confidential data that may be in those files. So use hashing.
If you give them the hash, so, and, I mean, obviously, if they've seen the hash before, it means that either someone else has uploaded it or someone else gave the same hash, so they might still know what the file is.
Yep, and that's a possibility. So, and that's something that we have to consider. But more so is that the hashing is if you have like a certain type of malware or something like that, you want to upload it and it'll tell you. So this is one way to do it. So you can have malicious PDFs that are going around, and if you have obtained someone's box and you're not sure which files are actually company files and made it, and which files are actually malicious PDFs, you can't just start uploading things, right? So you may upload the hashes of it, and if it is a malicious PDF, VirusTotal may have seen it. So that's what you're trying to get. Final thoughts. Forensics is hard. It requires intimate knowledge of the technologies currently being used in the situation. So it's going to take time to understand a lot of these things. So don't get discouraged. Take the time, read into it, understand what the file system is doing, understand how the file system works, understand how the technologies that you're interacting with work. And another thing that makes forensics hard is there's like a bajillion tools to do a whole bunch of things, and each tool does like one specific thing. There's like not really one tool that does it all. So you're going to need to spend some time Googling to look for tools to get the job done if you have a very special case. There's always a tool someone's written on GitHub or has publicly available, so you have to spend time Googling what tool is going to get you to your end goal the fastest and the quickest to get you the most valuable information. So don't get discouraged. You're going to learn the tools. There's a tool of the trade that you're always going to go to first. It's going to point you in the right direction of what type of tool you need to get the job done. And learn the technology and how things work. So I'm going to talk about my CTF challenge last year that I created. I created a CTF challenge, and I had a zip that worked just fine. And at the end of the zip, I appended data. However, people took my zip file and they ran binwalk on it. And binwalk said, your file ends here. Well, interestingly enough, the file didn't end there. There's an extra 20 bytes at the end of a zip file, which contains extra data that zip actually needs to function, so that you can extract data and all that. So people were relying on binwalk, saying that your file ends here, but there's actually an extra 20 bytes of the zip file. So people were extracting, when they had to extract the file that I appended to it, they were getting this extra 20 bytes. So the challenge wasn't working. So you need to go an extra 20 bytes forward to extract what I appended onto the file. So understanding how that works is really crucial. Understanding the structure of how files are built and stuff like is really crucial to this. And use Google. It's going to be your best friend. Here's some good resources. SANS has a good white paper. The Art of Memory Forensics is a really awesome book that I've been reading. So if you're interested in memory forensics, that's really good. Great resource. Any questions? All right. Let's go upstairs.